Assalamu alaikum, bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Sorry for the internet connection. And now we start just to introduce a little bit about Jessica, and just waiting for her now to join with us so we can resume our discussion about rebranding. Please, Jessica, please welcome. So we can start the questions and cook off a couple of what they call it, concepts about rebranding. If you can just send the request, please, Jessica. Okay. أهلا السلام عليكم جميعا. We will start the discussion a little bit after a couple of seconds when Jessica will join with us. Yes, I'm waiting for her just to join so we can start. Well, yes, she's there. Please, Jessica, join. So we'll discuss tonight about rebranding for the business leaders, and we have Jessica from United States. Hi again. Hi, Jessica.
Hi. So sorry. I don't know. My internet says it's working, so I don't know what is the issue.
It's okay. It's okay.
Where did it cut off with where I was sharing?
No problem. After introducing yourself, I just start with a basic question. I think we can start from that question, which is when I'm referring to the website that they call it Merriam/Webster.com, where I'm looking for the definition of rebrand, is written as follows. Definition of rebrand is to change or update the brand or branding of product, service, etc. I think even this definition is a little bit is incomplete, because we have to clarify it's rebrand or rebranding. It's same or is different. To come back to the basic, is there a difference between when I said rebrand or same? What do you think?
I personally think that it's a very nuanced difference. I think some people think of it as them being two different things. Personally, when I have a company that comes to me and says, hey, we need a rebrand, that could look a lot of different ways depending on what the specific company needs. And so sometimes that means, hey, we just need to re-clarify our vision and our mission and our target markets. And maybe that doesn't necessarily include a visual identity. But sometimes, and most of the time, when people come to me for a rebrand, they could use the term rebranding or rebrand. I don't really care either way, just because each rebrand is so nuanced. So it could include visuals, couldn't not include visuals, but most of the time when somebody comes to me for a rebrand, it always, whether the visuals are included or not, the visual design, it always includes a refining of the core values, a identification of target markets and things like that. So I would say rebranding for me always starts at that foundational piece. And then sometimes it's visuals on top of that and a refinement of the logo or colors or typography, but definitely always starting with the basics of branding and refining a company's vision.
Yeah, when we will come back to the basics, Jessica, show that what's written in this website is correct. The website Merriam/Webster.com. Why? Because there's nothing they call rebrand. Rebrand. Why? Because brand is already built in day one, when the business is already exists. Why? Because I'm talking about brand, as Martin Neumeyer said in his book about the brand gap, is that gut feeling about the perception. So perception is created from day one. So we cannot. So it's stick in people's mind unless if you want to demolish the existing brand and do like new brand, because brand is not related to visual only. The visual is just small, maybe 10%.
Maybe it's a small.
Yes, it's like like iceberg, top of the iceberg. Okay.
Totally.
Under the ocean, under the sea, we have a huge experience and list of checklists. So I think there's nothing they call rebrand. Is rebranding. That's mean I have my perception and I want to change the visual. And what I will give you just what I call it a metaphor. I have my land. I built my house. and there's interior design. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
the interior design is a visual. My house is a brand, and my land is my values. So you can change the interior design. That was a rebranding, you know. But that brings us to another question, which is every rebranding is equal repositioning or not? Maybe yes, maybe no. For some rebranding, you have to uplift the design without touching the value, without touching the positioning, right?
Right.
What do
Yeah,
you think?
right. Every rebrand, I don't think we can say rebranding across the board means XYZ for any company or every company, because every company has different needs and different issues that they're experiencing in relation to their growth within their market. And so I don't think at all, at least I would be hesitant to say rebranding equals this or rebrand equals this, because every market, every company is so nuanced, and the needs that they're experiencing within those markets differ so much. Yeah, does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense because, for example, we have a couple of clients here, either outside. Their main cause to rebrand is number one, repositioning, or just to uplift visual identity because of many competitors. They have like better, beautiful,
Right.
identity. So it's not related to positioning more than just to uplift the design itself.
Yeah.
So we cannot just say rebrand equal this or that, because it depends the cause or the reasons why business leaders or corporation or even governments, we talk about the high scale, they want to rebranding itself. So
Right.
why we need the branding from beginning? That
Why
means
do
evolution or revolution. Evolution
say
because
say it again?
yeah, I mean why we need a rebranding is because evolution or it's revolution or maybe both.
Yeah, I think it can be both. I think in, like I said, in any market, there's all kinds of reasons for a company to need a rebrand. It could be, a lot of my customers are rebranding. Some of them are startups, but most of them are businesses that, hey, they had a brand that got them, 20 years, 40 years in business, and then it got them to a point in the market where they plateaued, and there was no, if they were going to continue with their brand values and their target markets and everything, there was no space for them to grow in the market, or no tactical way for them to grow in the market. And so with rebranding, I mean, it can be really any reason. There's so many different reasons. And I actually, on this call, was one of the things that I wanted to talk about was the how, a lot of times when we think about rebranding, we think about it through the lens of the customer, which is great. Rebranding is really important for capturing your target market in a really effective way. But one of the things I wanted to bring up in this call was how much rebranding can affect the internals of an organization and make it easier for businesses to pivot, for leaders to make decisions, because rebranding creates alignment in teams. And so, anyways, we can get to that later, but that was
Yeah,
just that's just something that I think is really important for business
yeah,
leaders to
yeah.
acknowledge.
We'll go that to that internally. I want to talk about now the rebranding from aspects from outsider, which is the B2C or just the target audience. It's not necessarily rebranding. Just to give you an example, Coca-Cola, how many times they their logo within 100 years, comparing with Pepsi, for example.
Right.
So maybe even I think one of the oldest hospital in UK, I think more than 50 or 80 years, they don't even change their brand identity. So there's no rule, but especially when talking about number one, number of competitors and competition markets that push you, okay, intentionally or without intention, you have to positioning yourself, you have to show yourself It's like in different look and feel. There's no option, especially with, for example, we're talking about restaurants, we're talking about hotels, we're talking about some products or services, especially if you have huge competition. So that's one aspect. Second aspect, we're talking about, for example, companies with huge, what they call it, heritage or long years. It, it depends. Maybe sometimes they want to rebrand, sometimes they don't want to rebrand. But we agree that rebrand should be based on strategy. It's not just, we need like beautiful design and that's it. Because if you don't have rationale, if you don't have a brief, if you don't have story, that's mean you are follower, you are not leader in your business. It should be there's a cause. That cause should be, as we will discuss now, and I will give you this time to just to educate our audience how the rebranding its effect internally, maybe externally, and with the visual identity, with the product and service, with the campaign, with awareness, but how that will affect internally within the staff. It's just a visual change, or should be something in their DNA to will be changed.
Oh
What
my
do you think?
gosh. Yes. Yeah. I mean, a rebrand can totally shape and reshape a company from the outside in. So, for example, I had a company come to me last year as a healthcare company, and they said, "Hey, we need a new logo." That was what they came to me for. And I said, "Hey, I actually don't make logos without strategy and without a complete rebrand." And so I led them through a process, and we got all the way through the whole process, new, fresh visual identity. We went through a strategy session, all of the things. And at the end, I remember the CEO left me a message, and she said, "Hey, I just want you to know, when we hired you, we thought we were getting a new visual identity. And what I got was a team that's way easier to manage." And I said, "Wait a second, what do you mean?" And she was like, "Your strategy session that you led us through, where there were so many questions in people's minds related to where the company was going, what values the company carried, who they were trying to reach, there was alignment created in the strategy session." And she said, "Hey, you've actually made my job 100 times easier, because I can actually take my team and pivot in ways that I couldn't before." She said, because of the rebrand and her core team going through that rebranding process, where everyone, all of the key stakeholders, all of their voices were heard, everyone felt like they had some skin in the game. She said, because of those meetings, decisions that used to take her 2 weeks to get her team on board for, she said, now I just walk in and I say, "Hey, this is the decision I want to make," and everyone's on board. And so a rebranding can affect not just the externals of the company, but also the internal core team.
Yeah, that's why we have to what they call it, the belonging of change, because it's not just related to, for example, the owner or CEO. It should be affected in every employee. Because I will tell you something. Just if I have a food restaurant, and I change my brand identity, but the treatment of customers don't change. It's not make sense. Even if you change your signage, if you change your packaging, if you change your letterhead, but the treatment is not changed. So as you say, maybe I change this makeup, I just put the face, I just put a
Right.
mask and replace it, but the spirit or the behavior is the same. So that's we have to educate our clients or our audience that rebranding is we have two aspects, which is visual and strategic. And from the strategic, there's behavioral, what they call it, understanding for human-centric thing, which is number one, employee, from CEO to T-boy. All
Right.
of that's why, for example, there is a beautiful story. I think for one of the United States presidents, I forget his name. When he went to NASA, the bodyguard or the, what do you call it, the security, he asked this president asked the secret, what you are doing here? What's your job? He said, my mission is to get human to, to be in the moon.
Yeah.
See, this huge mission. That reflects the big why, as Simon said. He's not saying, yeah, just I'm security. It's a fact. So that's what we need to present it and reflect it to any
Right.
employee in small organization or in big corporations. So
Right.
that's the spirit of rebranding. Otherwise, it will be just you face off, just just change the mask. The treatment, customer service will be same. So my question to you, Jessica, is, and the beauty of your work that you get the, what I call it, the decision maker involved in this process. So it's not just a waiting and just get the stuff from Jessica. No, all of them involved. So what's your mechanism to make the business leaders or business owners involved in your rebranding process? It will be
Yeah.
brief sessions. What you are doing?
Yeah, so I mean, for me, I know lots of different branding companies use different tactics. For me, I have strategy sessions that I lead key stakeholders through. So could be CEOs, COOs, anyone who has some skin in the game with the leadership of the company. But also within those strategy sessions, sometimes companies bring in people who are lower level operatives within their company because they want to hear what those employees are saying about the company and let them have some availability to speak into where the company's going so that, like you said, there can be alignment throughout the company from the top leaders to the bottom of the food chain employees. But yeah, so for me, it starts with a strategy session, and when we get all of the leaders in the strategy session, it's really amazing how much people care about where their businesses are going and the companies that they are a part of. But oftentimes, even for business leaders, those conversations aren't had in a way that's succinct and in a way that actually is able to be in a space where we can record all of the information, because a lot of leaders of businesses can be visionary and they can have side conversations about, hey, this is where our business needs to go, or we think this is what our core values need to represent. But unless all of that is taken, unless all of the leaders are present and we take all of that and we refine all of that information into a space of clarity, it never actually gets translated into the company's brand, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
You, yeah, yeah. Just my question is, usually for your clients, if they are asking for a branding task or project from your side, the the strategy session is optional or is mandatory before going to rebranding process? You ask them, please, this is mandatory, or just an optional because they are just looking for visual identity and they don't want
Yeah.
to go to strategy.
I don't work with any customers that aren't willing to go through a strategy session. Partially because, one, because I don't want to design things that aren't going to make businesses money. That's number one. If it's not going to actually help them grow, then I have no business making a new logo for a company, because it's not profitable for them and it won't be for me either. But with also when I interview clients or potential clients, if they're not willing to go through a brand strategy session in order to clarify those things before we get started, it's a kind of a telltale sign that they don't actually value or understand the power of branding. And for me, it's not worth it to work with people who don't understand the power of branding and why it's important, because ultimately then we just, the working relationship isn't that great. And it tends to be like a pulling teeth. I don't know if y'all have that phrase in Arabic, but in America we would say it's like pulling teeth. It's like painful because, I end up trying to explain why branding is important and why we're making these decisions. But because the strategy session was never had, they don't understand why I'm making the decisions. And so, yeah, I don't work with any clients for visual identities that aren't willing to go through a
No,
strategy process.
for the strategy session as part of your process. Anybody, any client like they are looking for rebranding, you said we have the discussion strategic session first. After that, you go for the actual what they call it task, which is visual identity, which is based on archetype, positioning, etc., etc., which is we have a long checklist for that, right? So it's
Yeah.
mandatory. I 100% I agree with you, Jessica, because without that, um, I just today I just wrote a tweet. Of course, it's in Arabic, talking about if we dealing with a brand identity as of an art, we will not reach to the what they call it clear conclusion because people they have different perception, different taste because we're talking about art, not design. Whereas design is created to solve a problem based on strategy. So
Yes.
who decide this between bracket this logo is working is not working, as we have to refer to the strategic, not just we have to deal with the logo as an art because there's difference between art and design. Art,
Yes.
everybody will say, yeah, this is beautiful, this is beautiful. Yes, we have to put in our consideration the taste or the perception of the end user. But end user, they have instantly taste. They don't
Right.
have long origin. So that's why, for example, what they call it, the last rebranding for factory, what they call it, I forget the name, in United States. What's
What is it?
the burger brand?
Oh, Burger King.
Burger King. For example, where's the debate now?
Mhm.
Nothing happened. It's happened. So what they call it innocently. Or for example, if today is rebranding, or everybody talking about rebrand, making a joke or something. But after a while, when people just involve more with the Burger King or with the user experience, that perception will be changed.
Right.
That's why the branding is more in a strategic, more just about visual. Not underestimate the visual.
Right.
Visual translation of
Yeah.
of the strategy. But
Right.
this it is not what they call it the cornerstone of rebranding. The
Right.
cornerstone
Yeah.
is after the strategy you put the layer above the strategic it will be the visual. But
Right.
people they judge based on their taste. Yeah, it's a beautiful. It's not coming like that. But we cannot force people. Yo, please you have to think
Yeah.
strategy. We
Totally.
That's because tonight we'll discuss with you, Jessica, about the business leader.
Hmm.
That's why, just I want to give you an example. One of my friends talking about his client after they finish all the options for rebranding. He just ran away. Just go to his wife and asking his family, "What do you think about this brand?" And just like voting for all his family. 18 or 20 of his family just voting for this brand is okay or is not okay. It's not piece of ask your family is good or not because they don't understand the strategy. They don't
Right.
understand why and all these processes. That's
Yeah.
why most of the business fall in that trap. You
Yeah.
know, they,
Totally.
they, they thought the rebrand is a visual is an art. No, it's not an art.
Right. Yeah. I did love what you
As
said.
David Ogilvy said, if the design is not solve a problem, it's just an art. Yeah,
Mhm.
basically, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I loved what you said, that differentiation between art and design, how art is just about beauty, but design solves problems. And I think that really is the core when I have customers or potential customers that come and they don't understand the need for a strategy session. what that actually tells me about them is that they're not interested in truly understanding what problems their own company are facing, and taking time to really identify those problems. And if they're not willing to identify problems, then they're going to be unable to solve the problems. And so for me, that is why I only do strategy sessions when it comes to redoing logos or visual identities. It's like, man, if you're not willing to help me understand what problems your company is solving, I'm not willing to just shoot in the dark and try to figure out a solution for the company if I don't know what the problem is, right?
Yes. We have a question from Green Jeep 333. He said, or she said, are strategy sessions conducted in a similar manner for any side businesses?
For me, yes. I mean, I work with mid-sized startups and rebrands, and most of the time it's just getting 3 to 7 key stakeholders in the room and taking several hours to go through the strategy session. But I mean, there have been different companies that have had different needs, but most of the time that's what it looks like, is just having those core leaders in the room, getting everybody clear, making sure everybody feels heard in their own visions for the company and the growth and all of that. So
relate about the strategy. Usually, how many times it takes, and what's the titles you're trying to cover? Related to positioning, is related to archetype, is objectives, is process, internal strategy. All these aspects you covering in your session, or there's another task you have to tackle it.
yeah, so I offer some different options for strategy sessions depending on what the business needs. So I start with values, going through the core values of the company, vision, mission, positioning, and then also, like you said, archetypes, although I call them customer profiles. And then also I help them build out a brief marketing timeline at the end, basically helping them understand, hey, what are the things in the next year that we need to do in order to reach some of our goals that we have. So that's the first part. And then the second part is more consulting, creating a brand roadmap that helps businesses stay on track as they're growing so that they can maintain clarity in their brand. Because honestly, I can do a strategy session, I can build your brand, my business can lead you through all of that. And if there's not checkpoints along the way in the following years in order to help maintain that clarity, it can get so watered down that it's no longer helpful anymore.
It's huge with one session, Jessica, or maybe it's more than one?
Again, depending on what is needed, I do 1 or 2.
1 to 2. I think that session is very important. As if you are like a doctor, you have to diagnose your patient. After that, do the analysis. After analysis, do the action plan. After that, you get the medicine. Now we have which is the visual identity. So we cannot jump directly and okay, this is your design without knowing your persona, without knowing your vision, etc. Because unfortunately, for most business leaders, at least in our market, they thought it's just a visually driven task. Is not that much related to strategic. So I think we have to highlight about rebranding is more related to strategic plus visual tasks.
Design, sure.
Visual presentation. Otherwise, it will be, as you said, let's just shut in the dark, and we have to referring to their tastes. If I like it or not like it, it's not about like or not like it, but it's doable or not doable. It's work, it's not work. Especially for rebranding, is not related to emotion. It's more related to rational. Whereas marketing is more about emotion more than rational. That's why
Yeah.
people they are buying based on their emotion, not about the rational. But for
Yes.
visual identity or for rebranding is more related to my organization. So my
Right.
organization, as you said, their business strategy, their brand strategy, their market strategy, I have to combine it together. So we end up with a visual representation that represent all these aspects. It's not
Right.
an easy because especially of course you come up with the client and say, hey, just a logo. It's not that complicated. Why complicated?
Yeah, sure. Well, and what you shared earlier, even specifically related to business leaders, I was thinking about this regarding rebranding for business leaders. The emotional, what you hit on just now is like rebranding, branding has to do so much with the emotional state of a customer and helping curate those emotions. But often business leaders, I talked about this a while ago about subjectivity versus objectivity in design and why there's communication barriers in businesses. And I did want to hit this on for business leaders who might be watching this. A lot of times, a business leader within an organization can understand deeply the need for a rebrand, and they can look at their company and say, hey, we really need to do this. And at the same time, other key stakeholders within the business may have zero understanding of why the rebranding would be helpful. And especially if those business leaders have a lower emotional intelligence, and maybe they lean on a more objectively minded kind of personality, it can be more complicated to explain why rebranding would be necessary if you're an emotional thinker talking to a objective thinker. And so one of the things that I wanted to mention with business leaders in the way that if you are a business leader and you're wanting to know how to communicate the need for a rebrand to someone in your organization who's against it, and doesn't understand why emotions are important in business and why they need to be curated, often talking about rebranding through an objective lens versus a subjective lens is helpful. So I was talking with a business owner a couple weeks ago, and it was a large, like, historical agricultural company here in Texas. And this leader was saying, hey, I see the need for a rebrand. I know why it's important, but I don't know how to communicate that to my core team members. And so how do I do that? And I just did the math right in front of her. I pulled up my Google Sheets and I said, hey, if a rebrand can help you sell your product at 40 cents higher in a year, and you're wanting to sell 100,000 individual pieces, you're going to be making, what is that? I don't even know what that is in my mind. $40,000 a month more than what you were before. And so rebrand, if the leader can start explaining why objectively the rebrand is important through numbers and through the possibility, obviously those things you can't guarantee those things necessarily, but oftentimes that's what a good, well done rebrand can do, is increase your revenue, not just your revenue streams, but also your your gross revenue. So
Yeah, I think for rebranding, Jessica, we have to put in our consideration three aspects. Number one is, as you said, about the facts and figures, because as a business owner, I don't want to spend a couple of dollars or dinars, on rebranding and without to touch the results later on. Okay, so we have to change that perception. It's not spend, it's invest. Okay, that's about
exactly.
fortune. That's number one. Number two is about your family. I mean, your employee. So it's not just one man show. Yes, I'm the owner. I don't care about my employee. Yes, we want to change the rebrand, and without that rebranding spirit and objectives and the roadmap in my employee. Because at the end of the day, as Richard answered, like, your first customer is your employee without going to the external customer. So everyone, every employee, everyone in your team, he or she have to believe in your change. Otherwise, it will be just numbers in your team. It's not they are people. They believe that
Right.
you. That's second. So
Yeah,
watching and you have flame, the passion. So we have three F's.
totally. Well, and
Yes,
I, oh, go ahead.
we have to believe that. Without that believing, that's mean all the rebranding is just waste of money, waste of time, waste of efforts. But
Totally.
we missing two F's: the spirit of family and the flame. I mean the passion itself.
Yeah.
Because even one single recall, for example, if I call a bank or call a factory, just the answering itself, the tone of voice, the treatment, if it's not that in that level, all your rebrand is meaning nothing.
Yeah, right. Well, and I think it's like the new psychology of business. I feel like, um, in the past, business was all about making money, and and in millennial culture and in this new generation, it's become so much more about creating spaces for people to thrive, and businesses realizing, hey, if we can actually help people and we can solve their problems, then we're going to end up thriving as a company. I mean, you look at some of the largest businesses in the world, Google, Facebook, Apple. You look at their workplaces, where their employees are, and they care so much for their employees, because they have joined in this new psychology of business of realizing, hey, if we take care of people, if we love and serve our people well, and our core values of our company are emitted through every piece of our company, not just our external focuses towards our customers, but also towards our employees and our business family members, then our business is going to grow and thrive. And it's through actually taking care of our people, serving our people within our organization, that our organization actually becomes what it's supposed to be.
Yeah. That's why, for example, if you just I'll give you just a small example, if you have a small shop, whatever, jewelry shop or whatever, and you change the signage and you change the interior design, the mindset of the staff is same. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not reflect rebranding. That's why the employee is the first ambassador for you.
Yeah.
So when you're going for rebrand, they have at least we have to educate them why we need to rebrand. What's our objective? What's the roadmaps? What the mindset they have to change with time, of course. It's not changing within 24 hours, but it takes time. But at least they have the guideline. As if we have the guideline for visual identity, actually there's a guideline for the employee, how they can
Mm-hmm.
treat within the team itself, and how they treat the external customer. What we
Right.
have is rebranding is that means just redesign. That's it, without touching any aspects from employee. Employee is number one.
Mm-hmm.
Employee is because it's we have human capital, and even if you spend monies and without put in your consideration your employee, that's mean your investment is not in the right way.
Totally. It reminds me, there's a company here in Texas. They're like one of the largest grocery stores here. It's called HEB, and they do this so well. This idea of caring for their employees first. They pay for scholarships, they pay for any kind of higher education, they have incredible health care, all of these different things. But it's not just for the lower level employees. They only hire people into their C-suite who started out as baggers at their grocery stores. So these people have only grown up through the whole organization from the very, bottom rung. And you can tell that the organization has stayed narrow on their core values because they're caring for their lowest level employees really well, and then they only hire for their C-suite out of their people who started on the bottom rung of the company and just climbed all the way up, which I think is just a really interesting hiring model, that keeps, because all of these people started out at the lowest level, they're now carrying these core values of caring for the lowest level employees, even though they're at the highest placement within the company.
That's why we have to create our own tribe as science, because especially with the crisis time, all this treatment it will pay back. You know,
Right.
because in a normal situation, yeah, everybody fine. Crisis, the employee because their feeling of the belonging, they will pay back to the corporation.
Right.
So, so we're talking about rebrand. We have should there's in each one of our employee. We're talking about rebranding. Maybe later on, me and you, Jessica, talking about how talking about the tribe, how the branding is reflects in tribe behavior as employee or as a customer. Now,
Yeah.
if, yeah, please, if you have any questions, our audience, write it down. We have Jessica. We don't have her every day. You know, she's very busy. So if you have any questions, please go ahead, and I will do like summarize about what we're talking about. We're talking about what's the difference between rebrand and rebranding. Itself, these titles take a couple of hours we have to discuss, but that in a nutshell. After about the process of rebranding, and thank you, Jessica, for sharing about your sessions. Why sessions is very important. Before going for rebranding, we have to educate the business owner why we have to rebrand, and there's like different tasks they have to go through before doing the visual identity and how it's affecting their behavior. After that, talking about more human-centric design and the role of the team in the part of all this rebranding process. So that in nutshell, because we have almost 5 to 8 minutes to finish. So, Jessica, what's your advice for the business owners, for any business owner they are looking for rebranding? Yeah, we have a question now. Just before that, let me start first. This question later on, I think from Ahmed. Yes, my friend Ahmed. How can we build that when the collective market mindset, thank you, Ahmed, when collective
Yes.
market mindset does not believe that their hires will really truly feel that sense of belonging?
I think I think that's actually a great question. I think it's about differentiation, you know. If the collective market isn't doing something, what a great time for your individual company to say, "Hey, we're going to do this even though no one else is." Like that is the very core of differentiation. So, I think that's what he's saying. Um, it takes a pioneer, not just a business leader, but a pioneer business in order to start changing the way a market operates. I mean, yeah. So I would just say that is differentiation at its core, is doing the thing that other companies aren't doing or willing to do.
Yeah, maybe there's another aspect of this question, Jessica and Ahmed. Talk about belonging is all depend on the business owner and their what they call it, their persona, how they treat their employee. Their employee is part of their family, or their employee is just employee. There's huge difference.
Huge
Employee
difference.
like figures. If anybody is fired, yes, I can replace him, within a couple of hours. That's fine for me. Whereas in family, it's very hard to replace anybody.
Yeah.
That's sense of belonging. If we have this spirit of family, yes, we have to involve them. But for example, if we have a factory with 10,000, so we can't involve everybody, of course. It's
Right.
not okay. So we have at least the departments, what they call directors, the decision makers. It's not just one man show. It's not just just Jessica and CEO sitting together, and putting the plan and do the rebranding. It's more than that. Okay. Yes,
Yeah.
Ahmed. Okay. Okay. Your question is, how
Ah,
can we
that's a great
find the
question.
balance
I would say it's not a
between
balance.
that belongs and
I would
hitting the
say,
targets at the same time? Yeah. Go.
yeah. I would say it's not a balance. I think if a company operates off of its core values first and puts the values first versus a need for an ROI, the values will propel the company to the place of increased revenue. If a company is only focused on the revenue and it loses its core values and it's constantly trying to like fluctuate, I would say that company isn't going to be as effective as one that's constantly putting its core values first. It doesn't mean that you're not keeping track of the ROI and being faithful to make sure sales are coming in, and depending on what market you're in, making sure that your business is doing well. That's not to say it's the finances aren't important, because they are. But I would say it's not do we go after an ROI or do we go after our core values? I would say your core values, if they're aligned and if your business is aligned from the top to the bottom, your core values are a tactic for you to achieve the ROI that you're looking for.
Okay. My answer is, Ahmed, is it depends. For example, we cannot compare, for example, multi-international organizations with small startup business.
Mm-hmm.
Why? The multi-international, even if they have system, for example, even 1,000 just they can fire and they can replace them. So it's more ROI. That's number one. If they're taking care about their brand presence, they will taking care about their employee. But there are a lot, and we can read that news from the United States, from Europe, from China, and Japan. You know, a couple of big companies, even if they are not well-known brands, big companies, still, they, they don't care about the media. But still, if they are looking for their people's perception about themselves, of course they will put their employee in the first. If they don't care, because they are huge and they can replace them, quickly, so they don't care about it. Whereas we're talking, it's not about big corporation, we're talking about now small or medium. So small and medium, we have to, what they call it, embedded. We have to treat the employee as a part of our family. Why? Because we are small numbers of team, and we have to work as one family, especially either in good or bad times.
Yeah.
There's no other option. If there's a bad time, for example, COVID-19 now, okay, خلاص, resign
Totally.
and finish. That's why we have many tens of SME that just close. I have a real story for 10 years. I work with Mr. Musa Ali. He's passed away. Okay, and I worked for him for 6 months without salary. Why? Even I got another opportunity or another vacancy, I don't go there. Why? Because I'm belonging to him as a leader. After 6 months, just okay, everything's fine. So we don't have that spirit because we don't have the feel of belonging. Feel of belonging is very difficult. It's not just statement, beautiful one, but vision or mission,
Yeah.
wall, claps and artists.
Well,
is more complicated than it's
yeah.
times.
Well, and even in,
Yeah.
I was just going to say, even in a smaller business, that feeling of belonging and the need for employees to feel like family and all of that, in regards to like talking about revenue and how to balance those things, again, if a family is healthy, everybody's pulling their own weight, right? So it's not like, oh, because you're in my family, you don't have to do anything, you don't have to work because I'm your leader and you just get to sit around. In a healthy family, everybody is contributing, everybody is bringing themselves fully to the table. And I would say the same for business. And so when we start caring about our employees more, and those core values of our company and our brand are being emanated through every piece and every part of our business family, if you will, those members of our business, our employees, are actually going to feel propelled and uplifted and empowered to pull their own weight in the company. When a leader begins serving their employees like crazy, their employees want to work harder, which is crazy, right?
Yes, because we're talking about family, as you said, family business, family spirit. that will be beyond the contract, beyond the working hours, beyond the expectation. And you feel that every day because you're talking about your employee as like your friends or your brothers. It's make different. That's why, for example, some people say we have to build our own tribe. Our own tribe
Right.
tribe means there are number of people they believe in the same beliefs and the same values. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So that
Totally.
the tribe, as he said, there's a beautiful statement from Simon Sinek saying, the tribe is the future of corporations.
Yeah. Well, and I would just add off of that, with tribalism and things like that, with branding, it's like, if it's not going to work for everybody. There's going to be people, whether they're customers or employees, that interact with your brand that are like, this isn't for me. And that's totally okay. That is totally okay, because you're not trying to capture the whole world, typically. Successful brands aren't, at least. And so, even when we're thinking about talking about family and wanting to create that sense of belonging, some people don't want to belong. And so we as leaders within businesses and strategists and different things, we need to be okay with people interacting with our brand and it not being a space where they want to be, because the more we can get okay with that feeling, the more clear we can grow in who we're actually trying to capture in the market.
So, and that's why I will end up with this. Please just go ahead and for our audience, go ahead. Jack Welch, the CEO of General Electric, he passed away in 2020. Maybe, there's debate about his persona, about his management, but I agree with him personally. Another person, when talking about, we have star employee, we have to treat them as a star, and we have classic employee, which they doing whatever they are asking for, and we have 10%. We have two options: either to warning them to enhance their what they call it task or enhancement to their levels. Otherwise, we have to kick them out. I know it's very aggressive. We're talking about business. So that's why when I say about tribe and how we can relate it to rebranding, just imagine that we have a tribe and we have a leader. They change the flag of the tribe. So everybody, like for example, Red Indians, or they change even their costume or their face, with a feather. So it's reflect in their persona. So that's why branding is too much related to what they call it belonging.
Right.
Even if you change the visual, you've put the strategy, but one single employee, as Warren Buffett said, one bad rumors will be spoil all your, a couple of years building your reputation. So if that's coming from your organization, so from outside, from your country, that ruin your business. So I think it's a tribe and rebranding. I think we reach 10 o'clock now sharp. So there's, inshallah, we will go for to arrange a clubhouse, me and you and Jessica, if Jessica have time, of course. So if there's no more questions, I just recap again, and the last word with Jessica talking about rebranding for business leaders, what's important of strategy before going for visual identity or redesign the visual identity or uplift the design presentation, and the role of the internal customer employees, how we can involve them in this rebranding and procedures, and we end up with the tribe and how it's related to rebranding. The last word with you, Jessica, before we end up this beautiful talk. Please go ahead.
The last word. Love your people well. If you're a business leader, take care of them. And if you need help with a visual identity, let me know.
Good. Call to action. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, well, it's great to see you, Jafar.
Thank you, Jessica, for your time. I know your schedule is very tight. And thank you for this knowledge exchange. And thank you, Ahmed. Thank you, Greenhouse. Thank you, everybody who's will be has been here and the Instagram live, and we'll see you in the upcoming talks talking about design, brand, and creativity and human-centric thought. Thank you all. Thank you, Jessica, again, and
Great. See
bye.
you.
Thank you. Bye.